Okay, so I have with me here a craft mat. Now if you don't have one, you can always use a piece of plastic or some acetate, something that we can just put some ink down and get wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my Tempting Turquoise Classic ink, and I'm just going to put a bit of colour onto my craft mat here. And then I've got a bit of Dapper Denim, and I'm just going to add a couple little bits of the dark blue there. And then using one of my spritzers, and this here I've just actually got water put in here, I am just going to spray to make that all nice and wet, as you can see here. And I've got a scrap piece of watercolour paper, so I'm just going to place that down. And you can see what that looks like. So I'm just going to keep on pushing this into the ink to get a nice colour happening there. So you can see what that looks like now. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to add a bit more water to it. You can see all those colours running a bit there. And I'm going to then place some salt. And I'm going to let that and sit that to dry. Now alternatively you can use the heat tool to let that dry. It just depends on where you leave as to how long that will take. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit closer here because this has now dried, and what you can see has happened that we've put the salt on, that the salt has pushed the water out, and you can see that we've got these little cool little effects here where the water has moved away from that salt. So now that it's dry, I'm just going to get my finger and brush off all of this salt. So I'm going to go ahead and do that because that salt is just sitting on the top there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll be back. So you can see now that that salt's gone, we've got this really nice cool effect that's on our tag here, on our scrap piece of watercolour paper. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this down into a 2-inch rectangle, or 5 centimeters. So just using my paper trimmer to do that. And then I'm going to create a little tag out by using our scallop tag punch here. So I'm just going to put one end in, push that down, and we've got our little tag happening right here. So I'm going to rub my embossing buddy over the top of my tag here, and I'm going to stamp my greeting using my black archival ink. And my greeting comes from the Flurry of Wishes stamp set. So I've got the Merry Christmas here. I'm just inking it up with my, and I'm going to stamp this down to the bottom center of my tag so you can see what that looks like. And then using my Versamarker ink, I'm going to then stamp randomly my snowflake image, my small snowflake image from the same stamp set. And because I'm using photopolymer, I'm just going to put a piece in matte underneath. So just going to randomly stamp this. Scrap piece. It's a bit hard to see where I've previously stamped. So then I'm just going to sprinkle on some silver embossing powder. And I'm going to heat that with a heat tool until that melts. So you can see what our little tag looks like now. So I've got a piece of our silver naturals thread here, and this piece here measures 10 centimeters. I'm just going to thread that through our hole here, like so. And I'm going to staple it using the stapler in place. Then I'm just going to trim the ends, and you can see what that looks like.